I just witnessed an American guy argue with a British girl about the pronunciation of the word aluminum. After that ordeal, I can confidently say I'm not sure how to pronounce it anymore. For all who aren't actually sure, both pronunciations are correct. The spelling is different in each country. Aluminum with aluminium. That's what does it for me on the argument. The fact it's spelled differently would make you pronounce it entirely differently. Now, nor argument, lol. Absolutely a greeny moon. Best and most easily answered by Bill Bryson's research and in his book A Short History of Nearly Everything. The confusion over the aluminum-aluminium spelling arose because of some uncharacteristic indecisiveness on Davis' part. When he first isolated the element in 1808, he called it aluminum. For some reason, he thought better of that and changed it to aluminum 4 years later. Americans dutifully adopted to the new term, but many British users disliked aluminum, pointing out that it disrupted the ium pattern established by sodium, calcium, and strontium, so they added a vowel and syllable. Thank you, the first person in this thread to recite the actual story correctly. My American ass was gonna be like, just read the spelling. LOL, my British ass was sitting here thinking we're OP spelled it wrong in the post for a start. Aluminium makes you guys sound like the metallurgy version of Harry Potter. Two nations divided by a common tongue, or traditional English versus simplified English. US engineer here. I do know where I picked up aluminium, but many US people say it that way. I didn't know it was off though, so I probably picked it up as a kid somehow. I just thought there were two pronunciations for my whole life until I was asked why I said it that way. Most people don't. The few that do pick it up from watching Doctor Who or working in the engineering manufacturing where it's common material with a lot of Brits or Germans who learned English in the UK. In science and related fields, it's officially aluminium, even in the US. Even when it was discovered, the international scientific community widely agreed on what I guess we're calling the British spelling, even if the initial discoverer wanted something different. It was originally called aluminium, generally in the US too, before one American dictionary decided to put it aluminum instead, and whoops, now the whole country is saying it wrong. Nothing that you just said is true. American chemists and engineers absolutely say aluminum almost exclusively. It was originally called alumium by the British chemist who discovered it, but he quickly decided that it was bad and ended up with aluminum as the final name. Aluminium was made up later by other people who wanted it to sound more Latin, like magnesium or calcium. Both were used basically interchangeably until the 20th century, when the terms started splitting between America and Britain like what we have today. Chair versus choir, polish, content, face versus surface, Wednesday, etc. English is very inconsistent. You can make educated guesses based on the spelling, but you might be completely wrong. If the word has several meanings, pronunciation may differ, or it may just have several pronunciations just to mess with you. When you realize there's regional dialects for English and not every English-speaking country says or spells things the same way. Yeah, exactly. You can either speak it in the British way or the wrong way. We even have some regional dialects here within the US. So yeah, being from a whole other country is plenty enough reason for saying some words slightly different. Both are actually the British way. Both names were first coined by British chemists. What's interesting is that he said aluminium in his lectures but wrote aluminum in his textbook, which just seems like a big middle finger to the whole English language, which itself is a big middle finger to ESL students. Also interesting is that initially was popular at the spelling in Britain and was popular in the rest of the English world. But they started swapping when an American lexicon writer used the initial spelling in his lexicon and swapped the US and Canada to UK pronunciation and spelling is in line with the standard convention of element naming. US pronunciation and spelling is in line with the discoverer's naming and doesn't sound patently ridiculous, obviously getting a bit subjective on the last point. It's funny, with point give, I don't give a flying fuck what the creator says, and with aluminum, I'll run right to that defense, lol. IIRC, it's actually not quite within the discoverer's naming. It's with his revised A King After Being Mocked. Due to it originally being isolated from alum, the original proposed name was alum-alum, is the cutest chemical I've ever heard of. I love how this is something people even bother to actually argue about, as if there is an objective right answer. What a fucking waste of time, lol. People spell things differently in other countries. It's not just a different pronunciation, it's a different spelling too. You don't hear someone call their dad da and go, it's actually pronounced dad, because you would look like a complete fucking cunt if you did, right? Same thing here. Colloquialisms exist. Language evolves. The important thing is that people understand what you're saying. No one is confused about the topic. We all understand the white, silver, non-ferrous metal being discussed, so while you're arguing about how to spell and pronounce it, it'll be welding, machining, casting, and utilizing it to do whatever it is I need done with it, and not really giving a shit along with every other industry where it's concerned.